Our next speakers are Olympio DeMarco and Mike Geyer, who joins us from NVIDIA. We want to say thank you. They've been very generous in supporting and sponsoring DDC 2020. We thank them for their continued support. Olympio DeMarco is the Director of Strategic Alliances for NVIDIA and has been a key supporter of Dyndrite since our inception. He's joined by Mike Geyer, who leads manufacturing industry marketing for NVIDIA. Please welcome Olympio DeMarco.
Thank you, Sean. How's my volume? Okay.
It's good. You're in the dark a little bit.
Well, it's just the reflections in the office here, but I'm only going to do a few slides, so
all right.
We'll see, Mike. Let's look at the topics we're going to discuss today. First of all, thank you very much to the Dyndrite team for the opportunity to sponsor the DDC and for just working with you guys in general. It's been a pleasure, and I know it's been difficult to turn this around into a digital event on short notice. We had the same experience at NVIDIA. Normally our GTC, our GPU Technology Conference, takes place in San Jose the third week of March, and we were expecting 10,000 people to show up live, and of course we had to cancel that and make it a digital event. And the good news is we had 44,000 registrants, and people are consuming lots of content on the website, and it actually turned out to be a blessing in disguise in a way. Just a couple of comments on other things that are going on during the COVID crisis. We've got some working from home programs with our partners that we've been promoting and helping our partners figure out the best ways and best practices to work from home for their employees and their customers. And then we have an interesting charity event that has been working for the whole month of April, where people are being encouraged to donate to COVID charities, as well as do activity every day and score a certain amount of points. And the winning team is going to have their name promoted as the charitable contributors. But our CEO is going to match all the donations, and we're well over $100,000 right now. So we're getting a lot of activity and a lot of promotion within the company on that. Let's have the first slide, please. So the topics we'll discuss today, I'll spend 2 minutes, maybe 3 minutes on NVIDIA background. I'll turn it over to Mike Geyer, who's going to talk about our direction in the manufacturing industry, and then focus on why GPU for additive CAM. And then we'll talk about the various support and resources that we can offer you before the Q&A. Also, a quick shout out to an old colleague from Z Corp, Will Shambly. Hello, Will, how are you? Okay, let's move on. Next slide. There we go. This is a rendering of NVIDIA headquarters in Santa Clara, California. It is said that airplanes at 30,000 feet could only see two things in the Bay Area when flying overhead. That's the Apple headquarters in Cupertino, the big ring, and NVIDIA headquarters. And you can see, since we're into fast-moving triangles for graphics, you can see the shape of these buildings. The one on the left is called Endeavor, and it's been open for 2.5 years, houses about 2,000 people. The one on the right is called Voyager. It's still under construction and will open sometime next year and will house about 3,000 people. As a company, we have 18,000 employees and revenues just north of $11 billion a year. What is fascinating to most people is when I say the following: of those 18,000 employees, more than half are software engineers. So people think of us as, the GPU video card company, but we're a lot more than that. And let's talk about what we do on the next slide. So NVIDIA is a platform company based on single architecture of GPU. So whether you're using one of our GPUs in a workstation or a laptop, or whether it's in a bigger system like a DGX, or whether it's on an on-premises cloud or a public cloud, you'll find NVIDIA GPUs in place to help accelerate your graphics on many applications. And we go to market by different verticals. And you can see that the common language called CUDA for programming, GPUs for parallel processing. Mike will talk a little bit more about that later. But you can see the different vertical industries that we're involved in. If you look to the left side under gaming, ProVis, so it's standing for Pro Visualization. That's the group that we work in. We represent about $2 billion of revenue, and we work with enterprise partners that sell into manufacturing industries, and these are for professional applications, not for gaming. You can see all the other industries: high performance computing, AI, transportation, is autonomous vehicles, robotics, and so on. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mike, and we'll dig into our manufacturing strategy and trends.
Excellent. Thank you, Olympio. Can everyone hear me all right?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes, we can hear you.
Perfect. All right. Well, thanks, Olympio. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Sarah, Harshal, Dyndrite, and everyone that's here for being part of this event. Really impressed, just to echo what Olympio said, with Dyndrite's ability to pull this thing off. These are not easy. There's a lot of moving pieces, and even as we were doing rehearsals late the night before the event, everybody was incredibly responsive and supportive. So it's really fantastic to be here. Nice job, Todd, on the presentation this morning, getting everybody fired up. Love to hear the encouraging words, and really resonates what you said about necessity driving the need for innovation. So I'm Mike Geyer, and I look after industry marketing for NVIDIA. Recently joined the company. Before this, I was with a startup in the Bay Area doing distributed manufacturing. So on the front lines, dealing with DFM, MOQs, we had a distributed manufacturing model where we would consolidate fragmented demand across product developers from the likes of the largest consumer electronics to Tesla, automotives, medical, as well as a large number of cutting edge startups in the Bay Area, and then channeled that out into latent capacity in a network of third-party suppliers. So machine shops, injection molding shops, factories in China. And we're using machine learning and AI to both automate pricing as well as distribution into the network. So really got to see firsthand how additive and all the other manufacturing processes are being used. Really fun conversation when you're working with a customer at the point of kicking off a project. It's no longer, does that CAD model look right, or do you think this dimension should be toleranced differently? You're going to cut metal, and stuff gets real, and it's really exciting to see that. Prior to that, I was with Autodesk for a long time in the manufacturing business. Had the opportunity to work with the likes of Oak Ridge National Labs, Local Motors on the first additively manufactured car. Got to do some really fun stuff with machine learning and robotics and continuous fiber 3D printing. So been a big fan of the space for a long time, and had a tremendous opportunity to learn from many smart folks. The big things I think we want you to take away here today is that in order to fuel a lot of the transformation that we're all very anxious and eager to see in additive, we believe that multi-threaded processing, or the GPU, is a key ingredient to that. Harshal really talked well about that yesterday, and we're going to just reinforce and share a little bit about where we think the industry is going, the role of the GPU, and then what we can do from the NVIDIA side to support you in the industry. Definitely encourage questions. Realize we don't have a ton of time this morning, so ideally this will serve as a springboard to future conversations with each of you. To start, let's just take a quick look. This is how NVIDIA surveys the industry challenges in manufacturing. Many of these things are not new to you or to our customers. The things that are new are the acute focus on how critical these challenges are. Thin margins are even thinner, the shifting requirements and agility. We see, I think Todd talked about this a little bit, but really only the most determined, the most innovative, the most flexible companies are going to be the ones that get ahead and use the current situation as something to springboard into a new future. I think the other point I will make here is, if even in mid-January I had sat down with you and said, hey, looking ahead 3 months, Ford's going to be producing medical ventilators, Anheuser-Busch is going to be producing hand sanitizer, and the price of oil is going to be about $1. You would have laughed me out of the room and said I was completely crazy, but that's the reality that our customers are faced with. And that's the kind of agility and ability to deal with complexity that they're facing every day. And we're facing it as well. But what that does is it creates tremendous opportunity, right? It creates tremendous opportunity to take advantage of many of these emerging trends and these driving forces that have already started shaping the market, and that many of us in this room today are really excited to see transform what we know is a really traditional, stodgy, inefficient, and many times very wasteful industry that's too stuck in its ways to transform. And so I think the bright side of this is we're going to see a lot of change in manufacturing be catalyzed. Distributed systems, right? The disruption in supply chain started 18 months ago with the trade war stuff and this move away from globalization towards more isolation, Brexit and that. Now it's a huge deal, right? Air freight out of China is astronomical, let alone if you can get access to your factory and your workers are up and running. The working anywhere, that's just the norm. In the matter of a month, this is the norm. Digitization, many companies that had digital cloud-based initiatives as kind of side projects or something that was not paramount to the business, these are going to be key initiatives. These are going to be the only initiatives. The ability to simulate and make smarter decisions before you go and cut parts, before you route wire harnesses, that stuff's all going to have to be simulated. And the more that we can do that stuff up front, the better chance we have of bringing a product to market that the market's ready for and the consumers are ready to purchase when they're ready to go back to that. This era is going to drive rethinking of every single aspect of business. And it's going to come down to, I think, the big theme that kind of unites all of these is automation and reducing the risk of having a big inventory, being able to drive growth through tailored customization and, like I said, kind of simulating everything before you make anything. And as we all know, the reason we're here is we believe that additive and CAM are a big piece of driving this transformation in the industry. But there are some real obstacles and real opportunities. You can almost think of this as the Mike Geyer wish list for additive, that some of the things that we really need to see accelerate, given the opportunity that we have today, that are going to bring additive to the forefront. Multiple materials, right? The ability to engineer materials, closed loop sensors, both in the parts that are being produced, but as well as the machines producing them. We've got to be able to make bigger stuff. Post-processing has to get figured out. We can't be expecting users to continually do additive and subtractive. Generative has a big opportunity to become useful. We're seeing some really interesting stuff moving out of kind of the physical, mechanical applications of generative and into more fluid-based. I don't think the world needs better rims on their VW bus. The world needs better fluid flow for HVAC systems and conformal cooling. Resolution, production volume, and integrated circuitry are other things that get us all really excited about what the future of additive can be, but these are also the hurdles that we must overcome. And so Harshal put this really well when he talked about PostScript, right? He said, in order to think about the future, you've got to think about the past. And the way we think about the future and the past, especially in the context of our partnership with Dyndrite, is what's been going on in the geometry modeling space. I was at Autodesk when we branched off of ASYS, and although we have a rich history of innovation in the space, there's really not a lot that's happened in recent history that's going to drive the transformation in additive that we want to see, right? You've got geometry kernels that are still in use today that were built before many of us or some of us were born. And ultimately, the big point I want to make here is that all of this legacy it's built on a kind of single-threaded process, right? These software packages have their foundational underpinnings in computers that are just are less capable than your microwave or your smart fridge, and we're still running CAD that was kind of architected for them. And so that's why we, one of the big reasons I came to NVIDIA is the ability to apply parallel processing to all of the different realms of additive and manufacturing. And I'll revisit this slide that Harshal shared yesterday, but this really drives home the point of how much more performance we can get out of CPUs. We've kind of taken that technology as far as it can, if you will. Moore's law is starting to reach its limit, and moving to multi-threaded parallel processes is really the only way forward. And some of you in the audience have recognized this and are developing on top of GPUs, and we're really excited to see what other innovation we can help catalyze in the market with this move to GPUs and multi-threaded processes. Realize not everybody here spends all day thinking about the chips inside their computer or even what's inside their computer. That's our job, but it's also our job to come out and educate and evangelize the power that's in a GPU, and the fact that a GPU can have many, many, many cores applied to different applications, from AI to ray tracing to parallel computing. The GPU, don't think of it just as a graphics unit. This is a supercomputer that's in your mobile workstation. It's in your laptop. It can be deployed in a number of ways, but the use cases are very broad. And it's something, just being a few months here at NVIDIA, has really kind of blown my mind, the different groups that are working with almost all of the top automotive companies on autonomous driving, the machine learning that's going on the factory floor for predictive maintenance, real-time inventory management. The stuff in data science is completely mind-blowing. And then across the range of AR, VR, visual workspace. So I think the big point to make here is GPU is not just for graphics anymore. We are applying this stuff all over the place. And it can be consumed in a number of ways. So there's the traditional or the typical graphics card that you would think of plugging into your computer. This can be applied in on-premises rack-mounted appliances as well. So you can have an RTX server that includes up to 8 of our super high-powered Quadro RTX 8000 cards. You can also leverage graphics processing in the cloud. And 90% of the world's pro workstations are driven by this technology. And the thing, I think that, when I first started talking to Harshal and really drove home the point to me is, the graphics card is one thing, but the fact that in 2006, NVIDIA started building the software ecosystem, the toolkit, on top of the hardware to make it accessible to everybody, called CUDA. That's the thing Harshal said is, he had tried running his algorithms on Python and different things, and finally found CUDA and realized that this was the way for him to get the performance to solve the scale of problems he needs to solve and the Dyndrite team needs to solve, is by CUDA. And as you can see here, CUDA addresses a wide range of applications. And again, going back, it can be deployed desktop, data center, HPC, high power computing, or GPU accelerated cloud. And the CUDA toolkit is something that everyone on this call can access. It's an open source available set of programming libraries, languages, development environments, and includes a broad range of language support. And you can also start compiling new languages on top of CUDA. But think about this as your gateway as a software developer or a tool developer to take access of parallel compute and tap into the multiple opportunities that parallel compute gives you to go solve the big, crazy, hairy problems in additive, like managing the terabytes of data coming off of a laser to manage melt pool in real time. When we worked with Oak Ridge, that was one of the big things that they said that stuck with me, was this idea of being able to characterize material properties real time in the print and adjust on the fly is going to be a huge breakthrough, and that's going to require massive, massive processing. It's only going to be possible with a GPU and CUDA. We have a ton of performance metrics and benchmarks and all that stuff. One big place where we're seeing a lot of benefit to applying graphic processing unit is CAE, or simulation and analysis. Some companies have done a tremendous job of leveraging GPU to accelerate CFD scenarios. This is one called UltraFluidX that actually uses a VOXEL-based system. And you see the speed up of big jumps just by applying more GPUs to the problem. With that, I'm going to turn it back over to Olympio, who's going to talk a little bit about kind of what we can do to support you all here. Go ahead, Olympio.
Yes, thanks, Mike. Can you put up the next slide, please?
Yep.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So when we talk about alliances in the industry, you see that we partner with a lot of the major suppliers, you know, the Siemens of the world, ANSYS and PTC and Dassault, including Simulia and SolidWorks. And what do we do when we partner with them? Well, we have an organization that is part of my team is called Developer Relations. And these are the people that manage the relationship, make sure that the information is flowing to the partner under NDA, and, you know, in advance of launches, to make sure that they're looking at all the technology that they could possibly leverage and aligning with their strategic plan and their roadmaps with our roadmaps and so forth. And of course, when we need assistance, we have something called Dev Tech, developer technology engineers. We have solution architects in the field who can help on a regional basis. We have industry business development. We have an ISV certification team that has copies of all of these major apps, and we use to test our software drivers. You know, that's a big part of what we have at NVIDIA is a really robust software driver that makes sure that we can optimize the code for graphics and other things. We do a lot of joint marketing with our partners, right? And we also try to align with their executives to make sure that the strategies are in sync. And I want to, there's some questions coming in. I know we're getting to the top of the hour, but you know, there's a lot more than just rendering that people, CAD companies are starting to do with GPUs. I can use an example on this screen, ANSYS. They developed ANSYS Discovery Live on the GPU from scratch. So it's taking full advantage of the GPU. So it gets to real-time or almost real-time analysis. And you can make geometry changes on the fly, and you can see those results get updated pretty quickly after those changes are made. There's also things like generative design that are being developed on GPUs. A good example is PTC with their acquisition of Frustum and the generative design that is now appearing in Creo 7. People are looking at ways to apply AI training and inference in their system. And of course now, you know, we're looking at the CAM world. How can we better apply GPUs in that world? And, you know, amongst all these big names, if you'll click the slide, Mike, you'll see that, you know, we consider Dyndrite as an important partner in our industry because we see them as a platform. And remember earlier I said, NVIDIA supplies platforms. We're not just a board supplier. And that platform includes tools like CUDA and the different SDKs, but it also includes architectures that enable other applications. So when Dyndrite came to us, I don't know, a little over 3 years ago now, I looked at that and I said, wow, this really could be something new and exciting for the industry for the next 20 or 30 years, because it's the first first GPU-based geometry kernel. And we're starting to see applications being built on it now, and we think more and more of that is going to happen. So we think this is an important growth opportunity for everybody on the call here and for the industry in general. And with that, I think we should go to Q&A.
All right. Thank you, Mike and Olympio. Loved that timeline slide, and thanks for the mention at the end. We agree. We would love to drive this industry moving forward. All right. Great question from Dwayne. Mike's CUDA toolkit slide mentioned the profiling tools. Do you have any pointers to info on how to use the new profiling tools when developing in Python using Numba on a Windows system?
Ah, the number question. I think that's going to be a good one for us to follow up with you on. Yeah, we've got the email here. If you want to just shoot me an email, I'm glad to connect you with the right people, but I would only fumble at making up an answer to that one.
Okay, thanks for being honest, Mike. All right, we've got one from Anonymous. When do you see those big CAD actors really starting to use the GPU and not only for rendering?
So I think I already answered that one because I had seen that question in the window, and I was giving some examples like ANSYS Discovery Live. which is also incorporated in the Creo simulation live now. And Autodesk has a partnership with ANSYS. So real-time simulation and instantaneous results. I talked about generative design. I talked about people developing AI apps. And then finally talked about applications being built on the Dyndrite geometry platform.
Yeah, all right. I think that came in before you answered that. Okay. Any sneak peeks and news on
No.
graphics cards?
No, we can't do that.
Yeah.
But you know what? Our GTC was supposed to be third week of March. And usually the highlight of GTC is our CEO, Jensen, giving his keynote talk. And he obviously makes a lot of announcements during that keynote. And I can say to the audience that he will be recording the keynote soon, and keep a heads up for sometime in mid-May for that keynote to be available online.
All right, so please keep a lookout online for that. Do we have any additional questions for NVIDIA? Please submit in the Q&A dialogue. Or Sean, do you have any thoughts?
Hey, no, I do not have any thoughts.
Okay.
His thought is, why did they finish early?
Why did you?
No, actually, Olympio, Mike, it was great. Thank you so much. Again, you guys have been a great supporter of Dyndrite, and we really appreciate it. And great seeing that slide. I was wondering when you did your Industry Alliance slide where the Dyndrite logo was. You made us by giving us our own slide, and we really appreciate it. And to answer the question about products again on the Dyndrite platform, this is why we're here, right? We're here to support the developer community and provide tools and technologies that help to move this industry forward. So if anyone has an interest in building an application, please reach out to our company, specifically to me. My email and information will be on the website. And so we're interested in working with you and promoting your products. Okay.
That's great. Thanks, Sean, and congrats to everybody on the Dyndrite team for pulling together what's been a really great event. Really, really happy to be part of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Like, same thing for me. Bye-bye.